I sat in the car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight it felt like the bones in my fingers might snap. The stillness inside the car was suffocating, but outside, everything seemed to blur in slow motion. The world kept moving like nothing was wrong, but for me, time had come to a grinding halt. I couldn't tear my eyes away from my daughter sitting beside me in the passenger seat, her face blotchy and red from crying. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, and the way she looked at me, broken, devastated, it was like she was silently begging me to fix everything. But I didn't know how. How the hell was I supposed to fix this? Her voice, small and trembling, cut through the silence. Dad, Mom didn't go to Philadelphia. She paused, like she was trying to muster the strength to finish the sentence. She's with some guy at that hotel. I felt her words before I actually processed them, like a cold knife plunging into my chest. My stomach twisted in knots, and my heart pounded in my ears. The hotel sat just across the parking lot, its neon sign buzzing faintly, casting an eerie glow over everything. I stared at the sign, at the cars parked outside, at the purple Lexus, her car, sitting there like it belonged. For a moment, I thought maybe I was in a nightmare, that I'd wake up any second, but the weight in my chest told me otherwise. This was real. Too real. I turned to Brooke, my voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure? Brooke looked at me like she didn't even recognize me, her lips quivering. Look for yourself, she said, pointing through the windshield. There in the lot, Mom's car. Her voice cracked, and she bit her lip, trying to keep herself from breaking down again. The purple Lexus with the HAT plate. There it was. The car Gloria drove to work, to the grocery store, to our daughter's soccer games. Parked right in front of a hotel where she had no business being. Not with some guy. Not today. Not ever. Everything around me felt distant, like I was floating outside of my own body. My chest tightened as I stared at that license plate, HAT, mocking me in its simplicity. Gloria loved that damn plate. She said it made her car stand out, gave it character. Now it felt like a slap in the face. I could see it so clearly now, how everything about her had changed, how she had started to pull away from me, from us. But I never imagined this. I never thought she'd do this to me, to us. My thoughts were racing, scrambling for something, anything that could explain this away. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was just some horrible mistake. But deep down I knew. The look on Brooke's face, the betrayal, the raw hurt, was all the proof I needed. She had seen something I wasn't ready to face. I followed her, Dad, Brooke said, her voice shaking as she recounted the events that had shattered her world. When she said she was leaving for Philadelphia, something felt off. She was acting weird, and I don't know. I just had this gut feeling. So I tracked her phone. She hesitated, wiping a tear from her cheek before it could fall. I saw she wasn't heading to the airport. She came here instead. I blinked, the realization hitting me like a truck. Brooke had been carrying this burden all by herself, trying to figure out what was happening, trying to make sense of why her mother would lie. Brooke, you shouldn't have had to— I saw them, Dad, she interrupted, her voice breaking again. I saw her with him. She pressed her hands to her face, stifling a sob. She was with him, holding his hand. They walked in together. Her voice trailed off, but she didn't need to say more. My stomach churned as nausea washed over me. I felt like I was going to be sick. My wife, my Gloria, the woman I'd shared 2 decades with, was in that hotel right now with another man. She wasn't at some real estate conference like she'd told me. She wasn't working on some new deal in Philadelphia. She was here, betraying everything we had built together, everything we had fought for, everything I had believed in. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. My mind flashed back to the little things, the late nights, the sudden business trips, the unexplained absences. It all clicked now, like pieces of a puzzle I'd been too blind to see. Gloria had been pulling away for months, and I had been too damn preoccupied with work, too damn trusting to notice the signs. The unanswered phone calls, the random excuses. She'd been distant, cold even. But I chalked it up to stress. Work was demanding, life was hectic, and marriage wasn't easy after so many years. I told myself that this was just a rough patch, that we'd get through it, like we always had. But this wasn't a rough patch. This was the end. I clenched my jaw, feeling the weight of every lie, every deceit. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to tear through that hotel and drag her out by her hair. But I couldn't. Not with Brooke. Sitting right next to me, her eyes wide and filled with too much pain for someone her age. My heart shattered for her. My daughter, who shouldn't have to carry this, who shouldn't have had to witness her mother's betrayal. "I'll take care of it," I said, my voice hoarse. I didn't even know what I meant by that. Take care of what exactly? The situation? Our marriage? My entire goddamn life? I had no answers. But I knew one thing. I had to protect Brooke from the ugly truth that was about to unfold. Brooke wiped her eyes again, trying to steady herself. She was so strong, stronger than I felt in that moment. I couldn't let her down. I couldn't let her see the full depth of the rage boiling inside me. "You shouldn't have had to deal with this," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, but the anger, the betrayal, the disbelief, all of it leaked through. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The damage was done. The hurt was already there, sitting heavy between us, like a third person in the car. I looked out the windshield again, my eyes locking onto that Lexus. That stupid purple Lexus. I remembered when Gloria had insisted on buying it, how she said she wanted something flashy, something that stood out. I had rolled my eyes at the time, but caved because she'd been so damn excited about it. It was the first big purchase we made after she'd started her real estate career. A career I had supported every step of the way. I thought back to the woman I married, so full of life, so full of dreams. We had been young once, ready to take on the world together. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. Maybe it had been gradual, so slow that I hadn't noticed until it was too late. But now, staring at that car, knowing she was inside that hotel room with another man, it felt like every memory of our life together was tainted, rotten at the core. Gloria had told me she was leaving for a conference. Philadelphia, she said. Some big deal she needed to close, some client she had to impress. I had kissed her goodbye, told her to call me when she landed, told her to be safe. And now, here I was, realizing that every word out of her mouth had been a lie. My hands were still trembling on the steering wheel, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to do something, had to confront this head on. But what was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to face her? And what about the guy? What kind of man sneaks around with someone else's wife? I couldn't think straight. I couldn't breathe. But I had to, for Brooke's sake. I had to hold it together just a little while longer. I swallowed hard, glancing one last time at the hotel before turning to Brooke. "Stay here," I said, my voice low, strained. "I'll be right back." She nodded, but the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She was just as broken as I was. I exhaled, the sound of my breath heavy in the stillness of the car, my mind racing to catch up with the situation. The weight of what I was about to face pressed down on me like an invisible force, but I couldn't sit there any longer. I had to move. My body acted before my brain could catch up, my hand reaching for the door handle, pushing it open with a creak that felt deafening in the tense quiet. I stepped out of the car, my legs stiff like they were filled with lead. The cold evening air hit me, but it did nothing to snap me out of the fog I was in. I glanced back at Brooke, still sitting in the passenger seat, her head down, hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her breathing was uneven, and I could see the way she kept fidgeting, trying to distract herself from the emotions she couldn't fully grasp yet. "I'll be back," I muttered, but my voice barely reached her. She didn't look up. Maybe she couldn't, or maybe she didn't want to. This wasn't something she should have been dragged into. I should have been the one dealing with this, alone. But there was no turning back now. I straightened up, taking in the sight of the hotel just across the parking lot. It was one of those mid-range places, nothing fancy, the kind of place people stayed when they needed to be somewhere for business or passing through town. A clean, unassuming building with a beige facade, illuminated by those harsh fluorescent lights. Nothing about it screamed danger or drama, but tonight it was ground zero for the storm that was about to hit my life. I forced my feet to move, each step feeling heavier than the last. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked, the sound echoing in the still night air. I shoved my hands into my pockets, my heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to break free. My eyes darted to the rows of cars, every vehicle now suspect. I scanned the license plates and windshields like they might give me some kind of clue, something to prepare me for what I was about to walk into. But there was nothing. And then I saw it again, Gloria's purple Lexus, parked like it belonged there. My stomach twisted into knots as I got closer to it, the familiar scent of her perfume lingering in my memory. I could practically see her sitting behind the wheel, laughing, her blonde hair spilling over her shoulders like it always did. She had always taken care of herself, and it showed. I used to admire how put together she was, but now the sight of that car turned my stomach. It felt like a stranger's, like a beacon of something sinister that I wasn't ready to face. I slowed down as I neared the entrance to the hotel. There were a few people moving in and out, a couple of business types hauling their luggage inside, and a family checking in at the front desk. Nobody paid me any mind, but I felt exposed. My skin crawled with the weight of what I didn't know yet, what I was about to uncover. I glanced up at the rows of windows, each one the same as the next, each one hiding something behind thick curtains. I reached the entrance and hesitated, my hand hovering just above the glass door. For a split second, I considered turning around, getting back in the car, and driving away, just leaving all of this behind. But I knew that wasn't an option. I couldn't run from this. Not now. As the door slid open, the warm air from the lobby hit me, smelling faintly of cleaning supplies and cheap hotel coffee. My eyes scanned the room, taking in the pale walls, the dark carpeting, the bright, polished reception desk. It looked exactly like any other hotel lobby I'd ever seen. Bland, functional, designed for people passing through. But tonight, it felt like enemy territory. Every detail seemed to mock me, every smiling staff member and relaxed guest, blissfully unaware of the wreckage unfolding just outside their sight. I strode past the reception desk, trying to blend in, trying to look like I belonged. I didn't know what I was searching for exactly, but I had to stay calm, had to keep moving. My eyes caught a flicker of movement from the corner of the lobby. 2 people, standing near the elevators. I tensed for a moment, my breath catching in my throat, but as I focused, I realized it was just an older couple, chatting quietly as they waited for the elevator to arrive. I shook my head, pulling myself back together. I had to stay focused. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I pulled it out, grateful for the distraction. It was a message from Brooke. "Are you okay?" I glanced back at the car, where she was still waiting. She'd been brave enough to follow her mother, but I couldn't drag her into this mess any further than she already was. I typed a quick response. "I'm fine. Just stay in the car. I'll handle this." I slipped my phone back into my pocket, my eyes now scanning the hallway that stretched beyond the lobby. It was dimly lit, sterile, like every hotel hallway I'd ever seen. There were numbered doors lining both sides, stretching into the distance, each one hiding its own story, its own secrets. And behind one of those doors was my wife. My chest tightened again, that familiar knot twisting itself tighter and tighter. I needed a plan, something more than just storming down the hallway and kicking open every door until I found what I was looking for. I needed to be smart about this. But how the hell was I supposed to be rational in a situation like this? A young woman behind the front desk glanced up, offering a friendly smile as she saw me standing there. For a brief moment, I wondered if she could sense my tension, my unease, but she said nothing. I forced a half-hearted nod and kept walking, pretending like I had somewhere to be, like I wasn't seconds away from blowing up my entire life. I wandered the lobby aimlessly, watching people come and go, trying to calm the frantic thoughts racing through my head. Every second felt like an eternity, and yet I still had no idea what I was going to do. What would I say to her when I found her? What would I say to him? Was he someone she knew from work, or was he some random stranger? That question gnawed at me the most. Who was the man my wife had chosen over me? I made my way to a small seating area in the corner of the lobby, where a few worn armchairs sat around a low table covered with abandoned newspapers and old magazines. I sat down, my hands resting on my knees, trying to steady myself. Across the room, the elevator doors dinged open, and two more guests stepped out, completely unaware of the disaster about to unfold in their midst. I tapped my fingers on my knee, glancing at the time on my phone again. 5 minutes had passed, but it felt like hours. Brooke was still in the car, waiting. I hated making her wait in uncertainty, but I couldn't bring her in here, not for this. I watched as a middle-aged man walked across the lobby toward the exit, his leather briefcase swinging at his side. He looked calm, collected, like his life wasn't about to implode. I envied him for a second. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the elevator doors open again. I straightened up, my heart suddenly thudding in my chest. A couple stepped out, laughing, whispering to each other as they made their way across the lobby. I squinted, the air around me thickening as I recognized the figure of a woman with blonde hair, perfectly styled in loose waves cascading down her back. My stomach dropped. It was her. And she wasn't alone. As soon as I saw her, saw them, my heart slammed against my ribs, the air leaving my lungs in one sharp burst. There she was, Gloria, walking out of the elevator with another man, her arm linked through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. They moved casually, laughing, whispering, so absorbed in each other that they didn't even notice me sitting just across the lobby. I couldn't breathe, but I forced myself to stay still. My hands gripped the armrests of the chair, fingers digging into the worn fabric as I watched them. The man she was with was tall, built, and dressed in one of those tailored suits that screamed money. He had his hand resting on her lower back, guiding her toward the exit, like they'd done this before, like they belonged together. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears, the pulse of anger and disbelief hammering away at my skull, but I didn't move. Not yet. I needed to see more, needed to be sure. My eyes locked on them as they made their way through the lobby, every step they took tearing me apart. Gloria was smiling, a smile I hadn't seen in years. Not the tired, worn-out grin she'd give me after a long day, but a real, genuine smile, the kind she used to give me when we were first dating. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. How long had this been going on? How long had she been sneaking off with this guy while I sat at home like a damn fool, thinking she was working late, closing deals, building a career? They stopped near the front door and the guy turned to her, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it made her laugh. A soft, breathy sound that I hadn't heard from her in years. My stomach twisted as I watched him lean in, his hand slipping from her back to her waist. She didn't pull away. In fact, she leaned into him, her body language telling me everything I needed to know. That was it. The confirmation I didn't want but couldn't ignore any longer. I stood up before I even realized what I was doing, my legs moving on autopilot as I crossed the lobby toward them. I couldn't just sit there and watch this unfold like I was some bystander in my own life. I had to confront her. Now the guy, whoever he was too wrapped up in her to notice me coming. It wasn't until I was nearly a few feet away that Gloria's eyes flickered toward me. Her smile faltered, her entire body stiffening as she realized who was standing in front of her. Her face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. "Adam," she breathed, her voice cracking, but she didn't move. She stood frozen, her arm still linked with his. I couldn't look at her. Not yet. My gaze shifted to the man at her side, who finally seemed to realize something was wrong. His eyes narrowed as he straightened up, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and something else. Something closer to annoyance than fear. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. My whole body was trembling with a mix of rage and adrenaline. The urge to hit someone, was almost unbearable, but I kept my fists at my sides, barely. The man glanced at Gloria, who was still standing there, her lips parted, but no words coming out. His expression hardened, and he took a step forward, positioning himself slightly in front of her. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, his tone clipped, like I was the one intruding on them. "Who am I?" I snapped, incredulous. "I'm her husband. Who the fuck are you?" For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The lobby around us faded away, the distant chatter of people checking in, the hum of the air conditioning. It all blurred into the background. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my heart, the ringing in my ears as I waited for one of them to speak. The guy's eyes widened, just for a split second, but then he quickly masked it with a look of calm indifference. Like this wasn't the first time he'd been caught in this kind of situation. He glanced back at Gloria, who still hadn't moved, hadn't said a word. I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, her panic bubbling just beneath the surface. "Look, man," he said, raising his hands slightly, like he was trying to de-escalate things. "I didn't know she was married." I barked out a bitter laugh, the sound harsh and raw. "Bullshit. You expect me to believe you didn't know? Her ring must have been invisible, right?" I shot Gloria a look then, my voice hardening. "Unless, of course, she hasn't been wearing it." She flinched, finally breaking her silence. "Adam, don't," I growled, cutting her off before she could even start. "Just don't. Not here." I didn't want to hear her excuses. Not now. Not in this hotel lobby where everyone could see us. I glanced around, noticing for the first time that people had started to stare. The couple at the reception desk, the bellhop near the entrance. Everyone was watching, their eyes flickering between me, Gloria, and the guy like they were witnessing some car wreck they couldn't look away from. The guy, still standing too close to Gloria for my liking, shifted his weight, his hand dropping to his side. "Maybe we should take this somewhere else," he suggested, his voice annoyingly calm, like he was the reasonable one here. Like he wasn't the one who had just been caught with another man's wife. I glared at him, my teeth grinding together as I fought the urge to deck him right there in the middle of the lobby. I couldn't lose control. Not in front of everyone. Not in front of Brooke, who was still sitting in the car waiting for me to come back. I needed to think. I needed to figure out how to handle this without making things worse. "Yeah," I muttered, stepping back, my jaw still tight with anger. "Let's go somewhere else." Without waiting for their response, I turned and walked back toward the entrance, my mind spinning. I didn't look back to see if they were following. I didn't need to. I could hear the sound of Gloria's heels clicking on the tile behind me, the shuffle of the man's footsteps close by. Outside, the air was cool against my skin, but it did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. I marched across the parking lot, my eyes locking onto the purple Lexus again, the car that now felt like a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. I stopped, just shy of it, turning around as they caught up with me. Gloria looked wrecked, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear and guilt. But the guy? He was still composed, standing a few feet behind her with his hands shoved into his pockets, like this was just another day for him. I crossed my arms, my voice low and dangerous. "Who is he, Gloria?" She swallowed hard, her lips trembling as she opened her mouth to answer. But no words came out. She looked helpless, like she was searching for some way to explain what was impossible to explain. I stepped closer, my patience hanging by a thread. "Tell me the truth," I demanded, my voice harsh. "How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flickered to the man, then back to me, and for a moment, I saw something in her expression that wasn't just fear, it was regret. But it didn't matter. Not now. Not after everything that had just happened. 6 months, she whispered finally, her voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. 6 months. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet, but I held myself steady, refusing to let her see just how deep the knife had cut. 6 months. The words echoed in my head, bouncing around like a stray bullet with no target. 6 fucking months. I stood there, the parking lot spinning around me. The cold air felt sharp against my skin, but inside I was burning. Anger, confusion, betrayal, all of it churning into a fire that threatened to consume me. How could she have done this for 6 months and act like nothing was wrong? How could I have been so blind? I wanted to scream, to let loose all the fury that had been building inside me from the moment I saw her walk out of that elevator with another man. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not yet. Instead, I just stared at her. Gloria, my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, the mother of my daughter. And now she was standing in front of me, crumbling under the weight of her own lies, her face pale, her eyes wide with guilt and panic. She looked like she wanted to say something, to explain herself, but I didn't want to hear it. Not now, not from her, not here. Behind her, the guy shifted uncomfortably. I still didn't know who the hell he was, but his presence was like gasoline on the fire, making everything worse. Every time I glanced at him, my fists clenched tighter. I couldn't stand the sight of him, the way he stood there, so calm, so composed, like he had nothing to lose. It made me want to put him on the ground, make him feel the same pain I was feeling. But I couldn't. I had to stay in control. If I lost it now, there'd be no coming back. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. My voice was tight when I finally spoke, my teeth grinding together as I forced the words out. 6 months, I repeated, my tone flat, cold. You've been lying to me for 6 months. Gloria swallowed hard, her eyes dropping to the ground. She couldn't meet my gaze. Adam, No! I snapped, stepping forward, my voice rising despite my best efforts to keep it steady. Don't. I don't want to hear excuses. I just want the truth. My eyes flicked to the guy standing behind her, and I pointed in his direction. Who is he? What's his name? The man shifted again, but before he could speak, Gloria finally answered, her voice barely a whisper. His name is Brad. Brad. Of course. It had to be something so damn generic, so unremarkable. A name that meant nothing to me but would now be seared into my memory forever. I looked at him, Brad, and clenched my jaw, trying to keep the boiling rage from spilling over. How long? I asked again, my voice like ice. How long have you been seeing him behind my back? Gloria didn't answer right away, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the way she was trying to figure out how much to say. I stepped closer, my patience running thin. How long, Gloria? Her shoulders slumped, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. It started a little after the holidays. I sucked in a sharp breath, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. After the holidays. That meant they'd been sneaking around since January, maybe even earlier. While we were still exchanging Christmas gifts, while we were planning trips for the new year, while we were making resolutions to spend more time together, she had already moved on. Jesus Christ, I muttered, running a hand through my hair, trying to wrap my head around it all. So, this wasn't just some one-off thing. You've been fucking him for months. Gloria winced at my words, her face twisting in pain, but I didn't care. She deserved every bit of the anger I was throwing her way. 6 months. 6 months of lies, 6 months of betrayal. And for what? For him? I turned to Brad, my eyes narrowing. You knew she was married, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Don't act like you didn't know. Brad shrugged, his expression unreadable. I knew, he admitted, not bothering to hide it. But she told me it was over between you two, that you were just going through the motions. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Going through the motions? Is that what she told you? I shot Gloria a look, but she just stood there, looking small, defeated. What else did she say? That we were getting a divorce? That I was fine with her screwing around behind my back? Brad didn't answer. He didn't have to. I could see it in his eyes. He didn't give a damn. He wasn't here to apologize or to make things right. He was just here to win, to take something that wasn't his, and now he stood there like a victor, waiting for me to crumble. But I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. I stepped closer to him, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. You're a real piece of shit, you know that? Brad smirked, shrugging again. Maybe, but I'm not the one who let my marriage fall apart. That was it. The final straw. I lunged at him before I could stop myself, grabbing him by the collar of his expensive suit and shoving him back against the side of Gloria's Lexus. His head snapped back against the car with a dull thud, but I didn't let go. My breath came in sharp, angry bursts as I leaned in close, my voice low and threatening. You think this is funny? I growled, my hand still gripping his collar. You think you can just fuck another man's wife and walk away without consequences? For the first time, I saw real fear flash in Brad's eyes. He put his hands up, trying to push me off, but I held him there, the anger coursing through me like a live wire. I wanted to hit him, wanted to feel my fist connect with his face, to make him bleed for every second of pain he'd caused me. But something in the back of my mind held me back. Brooke, I couldn't do this. Not here. Not with my daughter waiting in the car, already shattered by what she'd seen. I couldn't let her see me like this. I couldn't let her see me lose control. With a grunt of frustration, I shoved Brad away from me, releasing my grip on his collar. He stumbled, catching himself on the side of the car, his eyes wide with shock. I could see his hands shaking as he adjusted his suit, his calm demeanor shattered for the first time. You're not worth it, I muttered, turning my back on him. Neither of you are. I walked away, my steps heavy, my breath still coming in ragged bursts. Behind me, I could hear Gloria's soft sobs, her voice breaking as she tried to call after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I made my way back across the parking lot, the lights of the hotel flickering above me like a bad omen. When I reached the car, I paused, leaning against the door for a second, trying to collect myself. My hands were still shaking, the adrenaline still pumping through my veins, but I forced myself to calm down. I had to be strong for Brooke. I had to keep it together. I opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. Brooke looked up at me, her eyes wide and full of worry. She didn't say anything, but I could see the question in her gaze. What happened? I let out a shaky breath and met her eyes. We're going home, I said quietly, starting the engine. We'll talk later. She nodded, her lips pressed together in a thin line, and I could tell she was holding back her own tears. I pulled out of the parking lot, leaving Gloria and Brad behind in the glow of the hotel's neon lights. The truth now laid bare between us. As I drove, the silence in the car was suffocating. The hum of the engine and the faint whisper of the tires on the road were the only sounds filling the space between me and Brooke. I kept my eyes forward, hands gripping the wheel as if letting go would make everything come crashing down. I couldn't think straight, couldn't process the whirlwind of emotions still swirling in my chest. All I knew was that I needed to get us home, to a place where we could be away from the nightmare we'd just walked out of. Brooke sat beside me, her body turned slightly toward the window, staring out into the dark night. Her reflection flickered in the glass, the faint glow from the streetlights casting shadows across her face. She hadn't said a word since we left the hotel. Neither had I. What could I say? What the hell was I supposed to say to my daughter after what she'd just been through? I glanced at her, wanting to reach out, to say something, but the words got stuck in my throat. She was too quiet, too still. This wasn't the Brooke I knew, the bubbly, always talking, full-of-life teenager who usually couldn't stop herself from making jokes or telling me about her day. Right now, she was a shell, locked in her own mind, processing something no kid her age should ever have to deal with. I wanted to tell her I was sorry. I wanted to say I'd fix everything, that it was going to be okay. But I couldn't. I wasn't sure it ever would be. The car slowed as I pulled into our neighborhood, the familiar streets feeling strangely foreign now. Every house looked the same, quiet, undisturbed, like nothing out of the ordinary had happened tonight. Like the world hadn't just fallen apart for me and my daughter. I turned onto our street, my headlights cutting through the darkness, guiding me toward home. Home. The word felt bitter now, tainted by the thought of Gloria. Our house wasn't a home anymore, not after what I'd just seen. I could already imagine the emptiness that would follow, the coldness in the walls. It wasn't just about her betrayal, it was about the life we'd built together, the family we'd created. All of it felt like it was crumbling beneath me. I pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of our house looming ahead. The porch light was on, casting a warm glow on the front steps, but it felt like a mockery of the warmth that was supposed to live inside. I put the car in park and turned off the engine, sitting in silence for a moment, gripping the wheel so tight my fingers ached. Brooke shifted beside me, finally breaking the stillness. "Dad," she started, her voice soft, hesitant. I turned to her, my heart breaking at the sight of her tear-streaked face, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Yes, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her question caught me off guard. Was I okay? I didn't even know how to answer that. How could I be okay after what just happened? But seeing the concern in her eyes, concern for me, made my chest tighten. She was the one who had just seen her mother with another man, and she was worried about me. I swallowed hard, forcing a nod. I'll be fine," I said, though the words felt like a lie. I reached out, resting a hand on her arm, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "How about you? Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away, just stared down at her lap, picking at her fingernails like she always did when she was nervous. After a long pause, she shrugged. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "I'm still trying to figure it out." I nodded, understanding exactly how she felt. We were both trying to figure it out. "We'll talk about it tomorrow," I said gently. "Let's just get inside, okay?" Brooke nodded, wiping at her eyes as we got out of the car. The air was cold, but I barely felt it. The numbness inside me had spread, dulling everything except the raw ache in my chest. I unlocked the front door, and we stepped inside, the familiar smell of home hitting me like a wave of nostalgia. It smelled the same, but nothing about this place felt the same anymore. The house was dark, empty, like the heart of it had been ripped out. Gloria's presence hung heavy in the air, and even though she wasn't here physically, I could feel the ghost of her in every room. The kitchen where we'd shared late-night talks, the living room where we'd watched countless movies together, our bedroom where we'd once made promises to each other that now felt like distant memories. Brooke walked past me, heading straight for the stairs. "Good night, Dad," she mumbled, not even waiting for a response before disappearing down the hall to her room. I stood in the entryway, watching her go, my heart aching for her. I wanted to follow her, to sit with her, to tell her everything was going to be okay, but I didn't know if it would be, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to put on a brave face tonight. Instead, I made my way to the kitchen, flicking on the light as I grabbed a beer from the fridge. I twisted the cap off and took a long swig, the cold liquid doing nothing to ease the tension coiled in my chest. I leaned against the counter, staring blankly at the darkened window, my mind racing with a million thoughts that all blurred together. I couldn't stop thinking about her, Gloria, about what she had done, about Brad, about every lie she had told me over the last 6 months, the way she had smiled, laughed, kissed another man like it was nothing, like I was nothing. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. I pulled it out, expecting a message from Brooke or maybe a late-night work email, but instead, it was Gloria. "Can we talk?" The message read. I stared at the screen, the words burning into my eyes. Talk? Now? After everything? I wasn't ready for this conversation, not tonight, not after what I had seen. Without thinking, I typed back a quick response, "Not tonight." I tossed the phone onto the counter, the screen lighting up one more time before it went dark. I couldn't deal with her right now. The thought of hearing her voice, of listening to whatever excuses or explanations she had prepared, made me sick to my stomach. There was nothing she could say that would make any of this better. Nothing she could say that would change the fact that she had destroyed our family, our life. I finished the beer in a few quick gulps, tossing the bottle into the recycling bin with a loud clatter. The sound echoed through the empty house, filling the silence for a brief moment before it faded away, leaving me alone again. I leaned against the counter, closing my eyes, trying to push the image of Gloria and Brad out of my head. But it was impossible. It was burned into my memory now, etched so deeply into my mind that I knew I'd never be able to forget it. There was no going back from this, no fixing what had been broken. I opened my eyes, staring down at the counter, the anger simmering just beneath the surface. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. Gloria had made her choice, and now I had to figure out mine. Tomorrow, I'd have to face her. Tomorrow, we'd have to talk. But tonight, I just needed to be alone with the wreckage of everything that used to be. I turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving Gloria behind in the kitchen, sobbing into her hands. The weight of everything was finally settling in. This wasn't just the end of our marriage, it was the end of the life we had built together. 20 years. Gone. I had no more patience for her tears or her guilt. There was nothing left for me to say, nothing left to feel except a cold, bitter emptiness. As I reached the top of the stairs, I saw Brooke standing in the hallway, leaning against the wall. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. She looked so much older than her 16 years at that moment, like the weight of the world had fallen on her shoulders too. She'd heard everything. I could see it in the way her eyes avoided mine, the way she pressed her lips together, trying to keep herself from breaking down again. I moved toward her slowly, my heart aching in a way that had nothing to do with Gloria's betrayal and everything to do with the pain I saw in my daughter's face. I opened my arms, and she stepped into them without a word, burying her face into my chest as I held her close. I could feel her trembling, hear the quiet sobs she was trying to hold back. But I didn't say anything. I just held her, letting her cry, letting her release the pain I couldn't protect her from. "Are we going to be okay, Dad?" she finally whispered, her voice small, fragile, barely audible. I closed my eyes, holding her tighter, trying to believe my own words before I spoke them. "Yeah," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "We'll be okay. I promise." But deep down, a part of me knew the truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. Not for me. Not for Brooke. The life we had was shattered, and now we were left to pick up the pieces. I could feel the exhaustion creeping in, the emotional toll of the night weighing me down, but I had to keep it together. I had to be strong for Brooke. Suddenly, there was a loud bang downstairs, a crashing sound like something had fallen or broken. Brooke tensed in my arms, her body stiffening as her tear-filled eyes shot up to meet mine. "Dad," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. I pulled away, my gut twisting with a sense of dread I couldn't shake. "Stay here," I said firmly, my mind racing with possibilities. I quickly turned and descended the stairs, the sound of my footsteps heavy on the wooden steps. As I reached the bottom, the sight that met me sent a chill through my body. Gloria was standing in the kitchen, her face pale, eyes wild, and in her hand was a large, jagged piece of broken glass from a shattered beer bottle. She was shaking, her breath coming in short, uneven gasps, tears streaming down her face. The sobs that had racked her body earlier had transformed into something darker, something desperate. "Gloria," I said carefully, stepping forward, keeping my voice calm, steady. "What the hell are you doing?" Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with pain. But there was something else there now, something unhinged. "I can't—" Her voice broke, and she shook her head, her grip on the broken glass tightening. "I can't lose you, Adam. I can't lose my family." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest as I realized what was happening. She wasn't thinking clearly. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into the house earlier, begging for forgiveness. This was something else. Something far more dangerous. "Put it down, Gloria," I said slowly, keeping my distance but ready to move if I had to. "Just put the glass down and we can talk about this." Her lips trembled, and she took a step back, her hand shaking so violently that I thought she might drop the glass herself. "You don't understand," she cried, her voice thick with emotion. "I ruined everything. I ruined us. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to—" "Gloria," I interrupted, taking another cautious step toward her. "This isn't the way. You need to stop." But she didn't stop. Instead, she turned the glass toward herself, pressing the sharp edge against her wrist, her eyes wide, frantic. "I can't fix this," she whispered, her voice breaking. My heart leaped into my throat. "Don't!" I shouted, lunging forward, grabbing her wrist before she could push the glass any further. "Stop!" We struggled for a moment, her body jerking as I tried to pry the glass from her hand, both of us breathing heavily, the panic and fear in the air thick and suffocating. Her eyes were wild, desperate, but I managed to wrench the glass from her hand, tossing it across the kitchen where it shattered against the floor. She collapsed against me, her body trembling violently as she sobbed into my chest, her tears soaking through my shirt. I held her, even though every fiber of my being screamed to pull away, to let her fall apart on her own. But I couldn't. Not like this. "Gloria, what the hell are you doing?" I whispered, my voice tight with a mix of anger and fear. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I'm sorry," she cried, her words muffled by my chest. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what to do." I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't have the energy to comfort her or tell her things would be okay because the truth was, I didn't know if they ever would be. I held her there for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her brokenness pressing down on me, until she finally pulled away, her face streaked with tears and regret. She looked at me, her eyes hollow, her voice a whisper. I just wanted to feel something again. I stared at her, feeling the last remnants of sympathy drain from my body. There was nothing left. No more words, no more promises. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. "You need to leave," I said, my voice hard, final. "Right now." Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but she nodded, defeated, knowing there was no more room for discussion. She turned slowly, walking toward the front door like a ghost, her body slumped in exhaustion and grief. I followed her, making sure she left, the sound of the door closing behind her a final punctuation to everything we had been. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the door, my mind numb, my body still shaking from the adrenaline of what had just happened. Gloria was gone now, really gone, but the pain, the betrayal, the wreckage of it all, that was still here. I turned around and walked back up the stairs, my legs feeling heavier with each step. When I reached the top, Brooke was standing there, wide-eyed, her hands covering her mouth. She had heard everything. Without a word, I crossed the hallway and pulled her into my arms again. This time, she didn't cry. She just held on to me, tight, like she was afraid I'd disappear too. And I whispered to her the only truth I knew. We're going to be okay. We'll be okay. But deep down, I knew nothing would ever be the same. Not after tonight.